My name is John Kent. I'm a faculty member in the Supply Chain Management Department in the Sam M. Walton College of Business at the University of Arkansas. Currently, my primary responsibility is Director of Supply Chain Research Initiatives in China for the Walton College. And prior to becoming an academic, I worked in the transportation industry at an international container ship company and a domestic trucking company. Today's presentation, titled The Relationship Between Leadership Strength and Performance of Fleet Managers, was published in Transportation Journal last year and is directly related to the trucking experience. Now I'm going to share my screen with my presentation. There we go. Okay. The research, or our current research question, was a result of several years talking with trucking company recruiters who were hiring our supply chain managers to work in various roles in their companies. The research question is how to assess new fleet manager applicants given traditional personality tests potentially violate the Americans with Disabilities Act and Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. What is a fleet manager? A fleet manager is sometimes referenced as a dispatcher. However, they're a critical human resource in any for-hire or private fleet in their daily operations. While dispatch is part of the fleet manager's responsibility, the fleet manager has direct impact on several important key success factors for a fleet's overall performance. A modern fleet manager frequently manages over 75 drivers and is the driver's direct communication link to the company and the driver's work assignments. While personality testing has been used extensively in pre-employment screening, human resource professionals have noted the possibility of these tools introducing bias into the employment process and potentially violating the, as I said earlier, the American with Disabilities Act and Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. An alternative for pre-employment screening is to use the Clifton StrengthsFinder Assessment Leadership. It is developed leadership traits, is tested in this research to identify relationships between the results of on-job performance for existing fleet managers of a large trucking firm. Results of the study reveal that there is a correlation between certain leadership traits and several measures of fleet managers used by their employer for evaluation. The leadership traits assessment utilizes 177 paired statements which allows an individual to choose which one best describes themselves. The assessment measures talents of your natural patterns of thinking, feeling, and behaving, and categorize those into 34 themes. The data for our study was obtained from a large motor carrier ranked by Transport Topics as one of the top 25 carriers in the United States by revenue and fleet size. The carrier provided our research with data from 30 of their fleet managers on key success factors, or what, from a research perspective, we call dependent variables. And those key success factors are average revenue per unit or truck, turnover rate, referring to driver turnover, average net fuel cost per mile, and average accessorial charge per mile. So accessorial charges are loading and unloading fees, demurrage, detention, different aspects of the charge to the shipper that are not in the per mile or quoted rate. The carrier also provided us with two control variables: the number of trucks that the fleet manager supervises, and whether or not they manage company drivers or owner operators. These were chosen as control variables because adding more trucks could be more difficult to manage, and owner operators may be motivated differently than company drivers. And I would say maybe it's not maybe, but they are motivated differently than company drivers. An owner operator is a small business, an entrepreneur. Both could impact fleet manager performance as measured by the four dependent variables that I described. This slide, let's see if I can move the picture, lists the dependent and the control variables, gives you a brief description of each of them with the average and the standard deviation listed. And I'll refer to these variables throughout the presentation. Actually, that's how I've structured the rest of the presentation. So this slide shows the descriptive statistics of the variables in our analysis. The average revenue per tractor has a range of 3,136 up to 5,069. With a mean, as you see listed there, of 3,855. Driver, and that's per week, by the way. The driver turnover for each fleet range from 25% to 75%, with an average of about 52. Fuel costs per mile range from just over 13 to just over 17, with a mean of 15. So that's the cost per mile for fuel. And accessorial cost per mile by driver range from 4.1 to 14.3 with a mean of about 7.5. Number of tractors in each fleet range is 62 to 99 with an average of about 73. And the fleet managers were exactly half, or as you see listed there, the average of 50% of company drivers and owner operators. So we intentionally picked of the 30 fleet managers, 15 of them for owner operators and 15 for company drivers. So first, the average weekly revenue per tractor is what that should say behind my picture there. So fleet managers, where the average revenue per tractor per week is a dependent variable, is of interest and relevance to the research question, are shown showing that fleet managers with competition and analytic strengths are the top traits that impact positively the revenue per week, with a range of 216 and 219, average revenue, not a range, of 216 and 198. And so that's relative to the 216 is the owner operator, and the 198 is the company driver. It's easy to see how a more competitive fleet manager would earn more revenue per driver per week as he or she tries to outperform co-workers. And analytical thinkers also do well as they continually absorb and analyze information to help make better decisions. And you can see on the screen there, this is from the Clifton assessment test, their description of competition and analytical traits. And I stumbled over the average revenue per tractor, so I want to be sure that I articulate that again, is 216 and 219 with those strengths. Next is where turnover is the rate, driver turnover is the dependent variable. And it's indicated that the strengths of responsibility, individualism, and relator are related to lower driver turnover rates. And that is what the way a fleet manager is evaluated and motivated is based on having a lower rate. So people strong in responsibility are committed to honesty and loyalty. Relators work hard with friends to achieve the goal. And those strong in individualism can figure out how people are different, can work together productively. Interestingly, while not included on this slide, restorative was also significant and was related to higher turnover rates. So people in strong restorative traits can figure out what's wrong and fix it. In the context of a fleet manager, fixing the problem may be firing the driver, which would lead to higher turnover rates. Next is where the average accessorial charge per mile is the dependent variable, and it reveals that positivity and self-assurance are top strengths to have higher accessorial charges per mile. Positivity helps get others excited about the way they're doing, and self-assurance gives people confidence in that their decisions are right or correct. Both traits should make it easier to convince a driver who is being paid by the mile, to take a load with accessorial charges, so extra work. Fleet managers with a top strength of individualism, on the other hand, had lower accessorial charges per mile, significantly lower. By figuring out how people can work together effectively, they may try to avoid accessorial charges, which may be why this trait is also related to lower turnover rates. Interestingly, managers of company drivers have approximately 2 cents higher accessorial charges, perhaps because company drivers are more likely to be assigned loads with accessorial charges than owner-operators, where the owner-operator may want what's frequently called a drop and hook. Next is the fuel related. So net fuel costs per mile is the dependent variable. We found being a fleet manager of company drivers and the number of trucks a fleet manager is managing explains more of the variation than in fuel cost than the other leadership traits could have explained. Managers of a company driver have approximately 1 cent higher fuel cost. With each additional truck, the net fuel cost goes down 0.06 or 6 cents per mile. So if you have more drivers, you tend to be better at helping them manage fuel costs. Owner-operators, on the other hand, are motivated to keep their fuel costs down because it means more profit in their pockets. And each additional truck there is an increased likelihood of having a driver who is concerned about fuel cost and trying to reduce it. Related to our research question are the results that strategic fleet operators have lower fuel costs because they can spot patterns and take advantage of them. Increasingly, fleet managers with positivity as a top strength have higher fuel costs along with higher accessorial charges and lower revenue. These results indicate that positivity is not the best strength of a fleet manager. So frequently think having a positive attitude is the best, but having an attitude that is analytical, competitive, relator tend to be better strengths than positivity. So I included that one in that slide. And so finally, in conclusion, because the Clifton Finders Strength Assessment only rates or evaluates leadership traits relative to an individual's own traits and not others, this assessment would be unlikely to be found by courts to qualify as a medical exam and should not reveal any undisclosed disabilities. Therefore, Clifton or other leadership assessment tools should be considered as an alternative to personality assessments as a pre-employment test. Thank you very much for your attention.